So first, I will present you the NexGenLeads, the program in general, give you some tips and tricks on how this program will happen. Then we will have some presentations of two of the main organizers, the representatives of the main organizing institutions, and then three keynote speakers. Afterwards, we will have a Q&A, and finally, a networking session. So please don't leave after this because you will be able to connect with everyone here. So I hope people are already posting their countries in the chat. And so you can see already that there are people from everywhere. So it's super cool. You can already connect today with at least 75, six, yeah, from them. Great. So now for the NexGenLead program, I will before present you some figures. So for now, we are more than 450 participants from more than 50 countries. So this will be really an opportunity for you to engage from people from all over the world and to have a very nice exchange. So regarding NexGenLead on itself, so if you are here, it means that you probably received an email with all the information, right? So in this email, you have a participants guide and a facilitation guide that was mostly that was done by Sophie here, Roberta, Adriana, and with the collaboration also of all the team. And so you can already open these documents and start following them on the next days before the real and big start of NextGenLead. So firstly, the program on itself, how it will happen. Um, Mainly on the first week, we will be talking about the being. So that's the first topic. So self-observation and reflection. So on the first week, the aim is for you to reflect on your inner self and to discuss with your peers about this. To do that, we will provide you a catalog of interviews of responsible leaders. And so you can go through those interviews, you can watch it on your own, and then come back to your local group of friends, of colleagues, and discuss about those interviews. From there, you can share your perspective, see what you agree, what you don't agree. We will give you some questions, some umbrella questions to guide your reflections. And afterwards, you will have some events also to share your perspective with the international community. I will talk about this later. So now that I presented the very big frame, the first week will be focused on the being. So as I said, in the inner self, on the self-observation and reflection, this with more interviews focused on personal stories. The second week will be focused on the knowing, so revisiting our knowledge and belief systems, and we will help you to have this exploration through interviews more focused on professional stories. The third week is focused on the doing, and for that, we will provide you some exercises and interviews based on a case study in education. So you will see on this third week what we have prepared you. It will be super exciting. So very briefly, this is the structure of those 3 weeks. To have more details, always refer to the participants guide. That will be your biggest friend during this program, and also the facilitation guide. So regarding the timeline, already the next week will be full of events. The first one, and that's the one you shouldn't miss because it will be given by Sophie and Roberta here, are the facilitation workshop, where you will learn how to facilitate or how to organize your local hub meetings. And so they will give you tricks and tips on how to prepare those meetings and how to make the best out of it. So really don't miss it. Also, you will have the NexGenLead Connect on Tuesday. And so where you will be already able to connect with people from all over the world and already discuss with them about responsible leadership. Then on Wednesday, you will have the NexGenLead Cafe, where you can have more open discussions about your perspectives on sustainability, on leadership, on responsible leadership, but also a lot of other topics, and so a lot of activities within the NexGenLead Cafe will be provided you. Then again on so the 5th is on Thursday. You will have again a NexGenLead Connects, and then on Sunday, I guess, 8 NexGenLead Cafe. So you are able to choose which activities you want to participate in, depending on your agenda, but definitely participate, get the most out of it, and start with a facilitation workshop. Then you are wondering, okay, but how will I connect with my colleagues and with people worldwide? So to connect with those people, we will provide you a link to a platform called Discord, and this link will be sent to you maybe, okay, let's say by tomorrow, definitely. And so, yes, Adrian is saying yes. So from this link, you'll be able to access Discord here and to start exchanging with your peers. So both in a local level and in an international level. Regarding Discord, so for now, there is a lot of things. You might not know it. It might seem complicated, but first, know that our team has also prepared to you a Discord guide. So it will be a very nice way for you to learn about this platform. And do you remember those days when you don't even know how to, I don't know, deal with a smartphone, or you were starting doing your first posts on Facebook? Well, there is all this barrier, right? And it's the same with Discord. But we are on this journey, and we have all of us actually 3 weeks to really learn how to use this platform and also to explore the program. Something I might have forget to say is that this is a pilot program, so it's the first time we are doing this, and so there are at least 50 people working on this program since 10 months almost, and um, and so yeah, you are some kind of the prototype. I won't say the crash test because we have prepared a lot of things to you, but really you will have the opportunity to experience and a program and this kind of global program firsthand. So really don't hesitate to engage and to exchange with your peers and to try out new things and also to suggest us um, improvements if you have new ideas. Great. I guess I have mentioned everything. So don't forget, really refer to the email we sent you and to the participation and facilitation guide. So now we will. Am I on time? Ooh, not really. Um, Now I would like to start the second part of the session, which is the keynote speakers. It's speeches, actually. But before I present you the first one, I will need you to introduce you to Slido. So Adriana is sending the link on the chat to this platform, and Slido is where you will be able to ask all the questions that you want to our speakers. So if there is any question arising, please just write there. And afterwards, in the third part of the session, we will have the opportunity to discuss those questions with Jay Christopher here, that I will present also afterwards. He's saying hello, by the way. Great. So I hope you are already, all of you, in Slido. And so here comes. I have a great pleasure to present you Sophie Charrois. She's from Germany, but she has been studying in Sweden, and now she is in Switzerland. And why is she in Switzerland? Because she is the new Oikos international president. So maybe you knew the former president is Clementine. She's around here also, but the new president is Sophie. And so a lot of new promising things are about to come, as you can already see through the participants guide and through the facilitation guide. So, Sophie, I leave you the floor.
Thank you, Marcelo. Do you want to stop screen sharing maybe? Perfect. Awesome. So a warm welcome to the NexGenLead from Oikos. And let me maybe start with zooming out for a second and looking at the state of the world first. With the second wave of the pandemic arriving in many of our countries, I think it's becoming more than obvious that we are living in highly uncertain times that challenge the status quo and that require new ideas and alliances for a more just and sustainable tomorrow. These days, many of us feel stretched, facing the complex challenges and the big open questions out there. More than ever before, I feel that it is time to stop following plans and that we should rather go and grow into the answers by exploring new pathways that arise when we come together. This also requires new ways of leading and exploring what responsibility means in this context. What a shortcoming is it then that many of the places where we are supposed to learn and grow, namely our schools and universities, do not provide us with the skills, the knowledge, and the mindsets we need to navigate these challenges. Many students in universities and business schools find themselves running from exam to exam and start questioning the sense behind what they hear and how they hear it. A question that drives many: but who is actually responsible for all of that and why don't they change it? Well, let me tell you one thing. The people who designed these systems, the mechanisms and the contents, couldn't know it better at that time. And they also do not have the answers. They are struggling just as we are. So I'm once more posing the question, who's responsible? And this time it is an invitation. As students, stewarding and creating the future we imagine lies in our hands. If we listen in, we can see that the world invites us to step together with all the different players and guide the way, with new approaches, with joy and a lot of courage. Over the past years, the student voices have become louder and now they increasingly are being heard. At Oikos, we believe that there are different ways of collaboration and more action-oriented ways of learning that at the same time can have a positive impact on the local and global society. What does education look like that helps us to grow into our full potential as global citizens that will bring about a more thriving and sustainable tomorrow? Oikos, our student network, sees its role in equipping and encouraging student change agents to bring about the paradigm shifts we all dream about. A collective vision of transformed higher education in economics and management is what brings around 1,000 students from over 20 countries in around 45 universities together, and the movement is growing. Our self-organized student groups are at the heart of the organization, and we are so proud to see how the community evolves. Well, at this point, I also want to speak a heartfelt invitation to all of you here in the room to connect and to join us from wherever you are. One opportunity, of course, are our international programs and projects like the NexGenLead that reach out to students around the world and help them to question and develop these capacities leaders for a more sustainable tomorrow need, and also to collectively shape the structures of higher education. The NexGenLead is a very new format for Oikos, as Marcelo already mentioned, and we are very proud to have partners like Swissnex and Movitia on board. With about 500 registrations from over 40 countries, this is our biggest virtual program ever. A big thank you also to the whole Oikos international team who supported the creation of the concept so passionately, and now is waiting for you to bring it to life through your participation. For me personally, the NexGenLead is an opportunity to grow the courage and the competencies needed to chase new paths in conversation with each other. It's a way to not only talk, but then also act. And first of all, to start right where we are in our lives. But maybe enough words for now. But let me close with an invitation on how to best attend this learning journey over the following 3 weeks. Dare to question what you see, create the spaces to have meaningful conversations, and never forget to enjoy the process and the practice on the way. Back to you, Marcelo.
Thank you very much, Sophie, for these kind words. Yeah, I was just going here through the chat, and it's amazing. We have people from Shanghai, from Philippines. Yeah, Vicky from Shanghai, for instance. And so, wow, we have really people from all over the world. So, really, if you want to join Oikos and join the community, and also, yeah, provide us with your experience, with your perspective, and also take a bit from us, it will be amazing. So don't hesitate to contact us, Oikos, afterwards. And then also from the other part of the ocean, so at least from where I am in Europe right now, we will have as our next speaker, Leonardo Machado. I don't know how to pronounce this in English, Leo. Sorry, but in Portuguese it's Leonardo Machado, I think. So Leo is the CEO of Swissnex Brazil, and so Swissnex is a Swiss agency to foster cooperation, scientific cooperation, and diplomacy between Switzerland and other countries. Leonardo will definitely um, say more about this. But Swissnex has been helping a lot, supporting and also organizing NexGenLead. And wow, with Swissnex, we could reach more than probably 80 participants in Brazil, I guess. I haven't counted, but something like this. So it's super nice that we have this opportunity. So thank you very much for all the Swissnex team. Leo, you want to jump in?
Thank you. Thank you, Marcelo. Maybe I think that we are on the best side of the ocean. At least we have very good beaches, so we cannot complain about the beaches. So thank you very much. On behalf of Swissnex Brazil, I want to give a warm welcome to everyone. It's an amazing and very special program, and that means it's a good morning for some of you, it's a good afternoon or a good evening, and all of those different time zones, they mean that I believe that one of the goals of this program, of this initiative, has already been achieved. That is to be a global initiative and to have all of these very committed and special participants here today, not only today, but for the next 3 weeks. And the NexGenLead is an initiative that since from the beginning, it was the idea, the concept was to be a global and a virtual initiative even before the pandemic. So I think we were a bit ahead of the facts of the world. Sophie did a very good analysis or a landscape of the world we are living in today. It was not easy to work during this year, doing home office, being away from friends, from colleagues, from parents, from family, and we coped with that. And during this year, I want to give a big thank to Sophie, to Clementine, to Adriana, to Marcelo, who worked hard, who were really great and committed partners into this initiative. The NexGenLead is not the only one result or initiative or event that we organized during this year. Marcelo was leading 2 other events about sustainability, about how can we use virtual reality in sustainability. It's a very interesting topic, and also about mobility for education. So during this year, Swiss Next Brazil and the Oikos International have been working in these topics, which I believe are very important. And that's why we have so many people today from more than 40, 50 countries connecting together and I believe eager to build a new vision, a new proposal for sustainable leadership. And I believe the most important thing today and for the next 3 weeks is that we're going to have a lot of inspiration. And some of you interviewed some leaders or people that you think that are responsible leaders. But I think that above all of you are an inspiration because you're here today, you're committed to do this work together, collaborating. And I think, as Sophie mentioned, I think we need that for the future. This is the year when the Swiss Next Network celebrates its 20th anniversary. I believe that there is a relation between what we want for the future and what the Swiss Next Network wanted 20 years ago about connecting Switzerland, in the landscape of Switzerland in education, research, and innovation, and trying to connect and to collaborate around the world with global innovation hubs. Today, we are represented with 5 locations. We are in Brazil, we are in San Francisco and Boston, we are in Shanghai, and we are in Bangalore in India, also with a bigger network, a broader network of science and technology officers in the embassies of about 40, 50 other countries. So the idea is really to connect and to create together new projects, new ideas, and to provide food for thought or on how we believe and how we want the future and the world to be now for the next 20 years. So thank you very much. I really think it's not only an inspiring program, but we have inspiring people and participants here today and for the next 3 weeks. And a big thank again to Marcelo, to Adriana, Sophie, and Clementine. I know it was a lot of work. I know that the next 3 weeks are going to be very busy and crazy and packed of events and technical issues that we have to handle. But I wish you good luck, and we are very happy with this program. So enjoy, participate, collaborate, and let's create together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leo, for your words. It's super nice. By the way, in this chat, we have Vicky saying that she follows all the news feed from Swiss Next China. So, well, there is maybe here a lot of people that know the Swiss Next network, and so don't hesitate to reach out to Swiss Next and also check if there is an Oikos chapter at your local level. And so reach out and start to make new connections. Now, our next speaker will be Toka. Hi, Toka. I'm not presenting my slides anymore because I prefer to make it more human, and so really focused on just talking to you. Toka is an expert on the art of hosting. He has been practicing and experimenting a lot of new methodologies in the last years, and how to combine the individual and collective level of collaboration. And so we have been using his methodologies and tools to as an architecture or as a structure for our program NexGenLead. And well, those tools were brought mainly by Sophie here and Roberta, so we thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Toka to tell us a little bit more about those tools and about responsible leadership.
Thank you very much. I'm feeling at this moment a great privilege to be part of this, and to all of you, meeting you, I don't know you as your name or your identity or where you're sitting and what your hopes for life uh, are, but we're all human beings. And as I was listening to all of you and sort of preparing myself for my little offering here, I was thinking when I was young in the 1960s, I came to high school in 1964 and ended in 67. And the grown-up generation were love to ask me and my friends, what are you going to become? What is the education? What's your job? What's your hope for, the work you will do in the world? And it was a hard question to be asked because I just didn't know. And in the end, I remember answering quite strongly to one of these older people that said, I really don't know. First, I have to find out who I am as a human being so I can decide. I can decide, not society, not my parents, not my grandparents, not my friends' parents, but I personally, as a human being on planet Earth, to decide what I want to offer, what I want to learn, who I want to be in the world. And I think that the whole program that you have initiated, I wish it had been 54 years ago made available, but somehow I found my own way, and so did other people from my generation. But, do we need more leaders, or do we need more human beings? Certainly, if we need more leaders, they need to be responsible, which is one of the reasons I said yes to be part of this, because I don't want to just contribute to leadership that destroys the world, the planet, the cutting of trees, the disrespect for each other, the lack of cooperation. And so there's something about who am I as if I want to lead, if I want to offer a contribution, could I be a servant? Could I be helpful to a bigger purpose than just my own, or my organization, or my university, or my country? Look, we are one species on planet Earth out of many. And somehow we have lived as a species as if we owned the whole thing and we could do anything we want. And now it's showing, and you are witnessing this, and you are stepping up in your generation to take responsibility for finding, different ways. I don't think there's one way, but different ways where we can live in natural harmony with each other, with all the other families on the planet, and with nature itself. And I think one of the reasons that I'm invited to speak here is that I haven't found the way or invented these methodologies. These ways of collaboration have existed through many, many, many thousands of years in certain pockets, and every once in a while they have been accepted by society as a mainstream way of leading, collaborating, and being together. And why do they then disappear, and need to be rediscovered? And I think, and you can think of this and be part of your conversations as you're learning together in this learning field, that one of the key essences is, am I conscious or not? Am I awake when I act in the world or not? Not just am I intelligent or do I have an opinion, but am I awake now, here, in this moment, being, this is the first theme of the first week, being. So somehow I was looking for ways of being, knowing, also not knowing, and doing as a whole. And I think your program design holds that really beautifully. I think it's a very wise learning architecture. So, whoever of you chose that and has made that come alive, and now you will all make it come alive, I think a good way. What I have discovered with my friends over the years is that we all want better results, and we can also have methodology or process, but really at the root of it is who are we who are practicing, who are putting into motion something in the world that hopefully in 10, 15 years or a generation from now, we can be proud of, or we can say that helped. Maybe we are not remembered. That's not important. But will we have somehow learned as a human species to grow up and be responsible, caring, conscious human beings? And what Sophie has invited me to speak to, and I will just mention it briefly, is a discovery that I have made with my friends over these years of hosting, leading, creating collaboration, conversations, and activities all across the planet to help people come together and work peacefully together, even though we have difference of opinion. We call it a fourfold practice. It's very, very simple, but I want to preface it with one more thing. One of the things I have learned in the 72 years I've been on planet Earth is that what I practice, I will become. Not just what I think, not just what I eat, but what we practice, we will become. We are the result of the practices of the human species now. And so if we change what we practice or refine it and make it more human, make it more consciously deliberate, sustainable, then we can maybe make a difference that we need. So a fourfold practice, I practice not a concept. First one, host yourself first. Lead yourself. Have some personal practices that allows me to be awake in the moment when I act in the world, and you can be awake in the world. If we are awake together, somehow we can collaborate better. A lot of the problems of the lack of collaboration is because we are unconscious. Second practice is the art of listening. So not just talking, but listening, being allowed for other people to host you. Now you have a beautiful team here who will host all of you for these days, and hopefully you will step further up. I'm using the word hosting as a way, as a form of leadership that creates space for learning, that creates space for that, and respect becoming conscious and awake in the moment. So the second practice is basically to participate in a conscious kind of way. Listen to the purpose, listen to each other, listen to what my heart is, the clarity that comes out of my heart. Third practice is basically to step up to lead when it's your time. I think many people think they create an identity of leadership, and it becomes irresponsible with leadership because they want to lead all the time. But you can lead today, another person lead tomorrow. So somehow that's stepping up to create the conditions using whatever methodologies of learning or collaboration you have, that those can somehow be held and prepared well, just as this program has been prepared well. Creating a container for learning is a very, very important and underestimated quality. And the fourth practice basically is lead together, host each other, create learning fields. Because one thing that we also, I think, could turn up the volume on in the world of humans is to be better learners together. And so, host yourself, Allow yourself to be hosted. Step up to host. Step up to create those conditions. And, co-leading. And in the middle of all of that, you can put a higher purpose. You can put a purpose that is not just our own little selfish purposes, but the purposes of planetary necessity, planetary health. And, were there ever a better time? Chaos exploding everywhere. And yet I have found with these practices, because they strengthen each other, it's like they are included and transcend each other. So they give strength to each other. And you can practice this as an individual, and you can practice this as a collective. And the result of it seems to be more strength, more courage, more simplicity. And when you act, prepare well and then act fiercely. This is how I think the real paradigm shifts are happening. A lot of preparation, and then suddenly something shifts, just as in nature, in the here and now. And so somehow this has become the core practices of what we now call the art of hosting, but it can be used in any other fashion. And I'm really excited to see that whatever is coming after, what is being presented next, that I feel that these qualities are actually at the root practices of what we could call responsible, human, caring, and fiercely loving leadership or humanship, regardless of what's going on. I have lost time. I don't know how much time I have. I have another minute or two. Is that it? Marcelo.
Thank you very much, Toke, for these words. So if you want to find more of this Toke experience, consult the participant guide and the facilitation guide, because Sophie and Roberta already brought most of this experience to those documents. And I think it's one of the added values of this program is for you to have these practical insights on facilitation and the art of hosting. So don't hesitate. Thank you very much, Token. So our next speaker will be Catherine Ruff. So Catherine is the author of the Carl. Do you know Carl? Carl is not a human, almost, is the competency assessment for responsible leadership. And so we sent you the test, a link actually for this test called Carl on the email that we sent you. So I want to do a quick test also, and I want to ask to those of you that already took the test to raise your hands. So to raise your hands, you go to the bar below in reactions, or I don't know in other language, I just know reactions, and you click, and you will have some kind of, yeah, thank you very much, Sophie. Look to Sophie, something like this. And so if you already took the test, please put this symbol so we can know, and we also can tell Catherine if it's working or not and how we can improve it. Great, Camila did it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I guess most of the people that didn't put the end, it's because they still are looking for the end, right? Great. So don't hesitate to start your journey by taking this test, because it will give us a common ground and the same, and to have the same definition of the same words in terms of leadership. So now we will be listening to Catherine Muff.
Hello, everybody. My name is Katrin Muff, and it's a great pleasure for me to be with you here today. You're here from, and I am sure this is the start for you for an exciting 3-week learning journey. I'm here to talk with you about what is responsible leadership. And I'm inviting you here to add to the chat comment box that you have, everybody at your disposal here on Zoom. Add what is responsible leadership for you? Have you experienced it? Where have you experienced it? In the classroom, at work, in student organizations? Do you know of role models? People you work with, your professors, maybe your parents, other students, anybody at Oikos? Feel free to type in and see what other people are writing in there as well. I'm going to give you some time here to think. I'm curious about where you have experienced it and how you have experienced it. Thank you. So back to the question, can it be taught? Can it be learned? I'm adding here some slides. So responsible leadership is about, if you look at the competencies, we have defined it as having 5 different key competence dimensions. One relates to stakeholder relations. Another one is about ethics and values, self-awareness, system thinking, change and innovation. Stakeholder relations is all about how are you able to deal with those people in your larger environment that may be thinking and operating with different frames of mind that may be unfamiliar to you. To what degree can you hold a space where you can listen to them, even disagree with them? How can you find value in disagreements? Ethics and values has to do with the question of whether or not, or the degree to which you are clear about the values you hold, are aware, are able to reflect on them, are able to potentially reconsider them if such a need be, or not, if you feel strongly about this is really a critical value. And it's about understanding how ethics and values works in a diverse global culture. Self-awareness has to do with how aware you are about yourself. To what degree you're able to actually sit back and take a step back from all of what you are busy with and what's happening for you, and reflecting about that. In theory and in practice, to what degree are you aware of your strengths and weaknesses, and are you able to actually do something about them if you choose to? System thinking is all about understanding not only your position, your business's position or project's position, but also what are effects of ideal or easy or quick solutions you may have to problems, and particularly what are also unintended consequences. You know, there is a famous saying that says that all of the problems that we have today are a result of a solution to a past problem. And what does that mean? It means we thought we can fix something with a solution that ended up causing new problems. And then last and not least, change and innovation is a competency that I'm sure you have a strong muscle in, that has to do with, okay, so how am I behaving? How am I able to bring about change? How am I able to accompany, to receive, to adapt to change? And what are innovation processes to bring about change? So as you can see here, basically, if you look at the traditional learning journey, often in pedagogy in school, we talk about actually first you need to know about something, then you need to practice it, ideally in a work setting, can also be in a project of your choice, in activities that you do, student activities. And eventually, if you've practiced this enough, you will forget about it and it will become a part of who you are. So this is kind of the knowing, doing, being aspect that we're talking about. What is interesting, I find, is that in these values or in these competencies, particularly, for example, self-awareness or ethics and values, depending on what kind of a life journey you've been on, it can very well be that you have unconsciously adopted through your childhood, through who your parents were, who your friends were in early childhood, that you have already a very strong sense of what is right, but you may not actually have an understanding underneath. So you may be super ethical with deep values that are, that are open to others and inclusive and whatever you define as being important to you and relevant in this global setting. And it is only later on by reading about it that you realize actually, this is what I do. So it goes often through an experiential learning, for example, meaning that only by reflecting about it or by doing something or by reading about something, suddenly you actually experience what this is of who you are already. So what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say there are two different ways and probably many more ways to learn about responsible leadership and probably about many other things as well. So why am I talking about this and why about these five competencies? Here comes my next question to you. And again, put your answers in the chat box here next to it. Why are these competencies relevant? My thesis is, and I'm curious what you think, is that business in the 21st century requires very different competencies than it did in the 20th century. Tell me what you think, what is new for business in the 21st century. Just add your comments to the box below. Many things will come up, such as climate change is different, the SDGs come up, business needs to play a role in society, capitalism doesn't work anymore, business is not alone in the world, there's other civil players and so forth. Let me move to my second slide. I think what is even more important is traditionally in business schools, we only talked about business, we only used to talk about business here in this orange box, as in the context of traditional markets and with external stakeholders, kind of suppliers and clients. And I think to me, the best way to frame what is new in the 21st century is what is the role of business in a much larger framework, where there are new market opportunities that are to be developed and discovered with new partners and in new collaborations, given that the world is a different one today, given that we have these 17 global challenges that we need to resolve by 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals. And my hypothesis is that these 5 competencies of responsible leadership are required so that as a leader, you can operate not only successfully within your business, but more importantly, how you can successfully operate outside of the context of your unit, of a startup, of a business, of a project. How can you interact successfully out there beyond that? And I think COVID is an interesting perspective in here too. Now, my last question to you is where do you learn responsible leadership competencies best? What do you think? And there's basically no wrong answers. Of course, you don't learn responsible leadership mostly in the classroom. This is hopefully where you gain more knowledge about it. But then to practice the skills, you need to find ways to apply them in projects, in teams, in startups, in internship, by engaging in oikos and other activities that you're so passionate about. My invitation to you is step up where you can. And of course, reflect to what degree you have already fully incorporated the various elements that we have discussed of these 5 dimensions and the 3 action domains. And where is your space so that you can actually improve? Where do you have elements you want to grow in and do better? So here's the invitation at the beginning of your 3-week oikos NexGen learning journey. Do complete the competency assessment for responsible leadership. We call it the CARL, and identify where you have the most growth potential, and identify ways and places where you can train these competencies more, ideally in the next 3 weeks. As you do the assessment, do remember to enter oikos 20B. Oikos spelled small, as always, 20 large B, and enter that in the code. The assessment is available in German, in English, and in Portuguese, thanks to Oikos Labor. Thank you for completing it, and you will receive, each of you, automatically such a report, and there pick those areas that have the lowest scores and that you feel you can do something about in the next few weeks. Value train, and we will test again where you are at the end, and we'll get a picture of where all of you are together as a group in this, and we'll talk about this as well. It was a great pleasure for me to talk with you. I hope you have a wonderful start of your 3 weeks, and I'm very happy that Arnold Schmidt is here to answer any questions about the competency assessment for responsible leadership. All the best. Bye-bye.
Great. So thank you, Catherine Muff. It was super nice. So yeah, go there and do the test. Start your journey by doing the CARL and testing the competencies for responsible leadership. And as Mario was saying here, you might have no clue about some of the questions Catherine gave us, but we will have 3 weeks to explore. And it's super nice because with those questions, we can see in the chat already so many answers and different perspectives, and that's definitely what we want to get out of those 3 weeks. And so now you've seen Catherine Muff, and during those 3 weeks, you will also have the opportunity to see many responsible leaders through interviews. Blah. So yeah, so don't hesitate to watch all these interviews that we will providing you. So as Catherine mentioned, our next speaker is Professor Arnold Schmidt from South Africa, and you will tell us a little bit more about CARL in practical terms. Carl? I'm missing everything, not Carl, but Arnold. Please take the floor.
Well, Carl is the central person of our attention at the moment. So yes, indeed. Thank you, Marcelo, and the rest of your team. And from my side, welcome and congratulations with this wonderful initiative of yours. It's feeling a bit like deja vu for me as a business school teacher to be teaching on a Saturday afternoon to an MBA class. Whether you are doing MBAs or whatever study you have been doing, but this feeling of sitting in a classroom on a Saturday afternoon It is not strange to me. So welcome, and I hope that the brief session that I will have with you will be helpful in many ways. I'm going to share my screen because I think the intention was already that I try to make Carl a little bit practical for you. So I hope that you're able to see my screen now. Can I just confirm that my screen is visible? Is that so? Good.
Yes,
so I can continue. So from the perspective of what we are talking about, I would like to say more about Carl in practice. The competency assessment for responsible leadership. Once we've done this, what do we do with it? So to start off with, I would like just to explain with you a little bit about how I understand the concept of responsible leadership. There is no way, I think, in which we can understand the concept responsibility without understanding it in the context of relationships. And I think we've heard that from Tucker, we've heard that from Katrine as well. Responsibility is a relational concept. It's a relationship to self. It is a relationship to the people that we are connected to, but it's also a relationship to society more broadly, to the economy, to the environment, to everything else that is existing. Now, if that is the case, and it is a relational concept, and we then add responsibility to leadership, the question then becomes, so what is the essence of responsible leadership? In responsible leadership, we are not premised or talking about how do I create followers for myself. The concept of servanthood has already been explained this afternoon. Responsible leaders are people who are working with stakeholders and working together with them to create a world that is just, fair, and sustainable for all. And I think we're in agreement that this is not where we are at the moment. And we can discuss the reasons why that is the case. But at the same time, we also say that responsible leaders are mindful of the impact of their decisions and actions on the environment, society, and the economy. So with that, we say that with responsibility, we are not just only thinking of the now, we are not only just looking backwards and ask about responsibilities from the past, we are looking forward and we are asking about consequences of actions, of impact on a broader scale. And the concept that has already been planted, I think, in this afternoon's conversation is that it starts with a particular self-awareness, because the me here is embedded in the we there, is embedded in the all of us over there. We never step away from ourselves. This consciousness of being in relationship to self and to others and to the environment and society and the economy and everything else that exists, all the ecosystems, is an awareness that starts within ourselves, that we need to kindle within ourselves and nurture all the time. I use the competency assessment for responsible leadership in 3 ways. The first is, as it has been explained by Katrine just now, for personal development purposes, where one can learn about yourself in relationship to the competencies and the action domains. That is in any case where the whole exercise starts. And I don't want to say much more about that. I would like to focus more on the next 2, because in the next 2 ways, I use it as an instrument for learning integration. In other words, once you have done the assessment, to reflect about what are you learning in a particular field. And I will give you an example later on, but whether that field might be climate change, whether it might be sustainability in general, corporate social responsibility, consumer behavior, and so on. But how can we use this in terms of reflecting on the learning that we are acquiring as a result of taking a particular program? The third way in which I use it is for problem solving. So how can we go from having the assessment and knowing the framework to applying that in a way in which we can address complex challenges in business and society? So let me focus on the learning integration one after a module. So what I, for instance, do with students is once we've done a module such as what I teach, Business in Society, and we can take within that a particular topic, let's say in this case, climate change, I use these 5 competencies as lenses on the topic. In other words, to afterwards ask students then and say, okay, so from a stakeholder relation perspective, if I am convinced that this is something that's important and that I need to attend to, who are the stakeholders that I need to learn from or to collaborate with? Whom do I need to pull into my network? And secondly, how are my ethics and values enriched by what I've learned? And what I, for instance, find with students is that programs on climate change, sustainability, corporate responsibility, and so expand the world of people. So how are my ethics and values enriched by what I'm learning? Also at the same time, in terms of self-awareness, almost sitting at the core here of these 5 competencies. So what have I discovered about myself that may challenge me to learn differently? So how are my views expanded so that I could say, maybe I should make a change in the way in which I live or deal with a particular aspect of my life? When we come to systems understanding, the question is really, so in terms of how I'm living at the moment or what my current practices might be, so what are the impact of my decisions and actions on the environment and society and the economy? Can I measure or evaluate those impacts? And as a result of that, am I challenged maybe to do a few things differently? And then lastly, in terms of change and innovation, where can I start? Where is my leverage? What do I need to do first? In my own life, in the team that I lead, in the organization that I work, in society more broadly, and how will I know that I've made progress? So this is how I go about it when it comes to learning integration. When it comes to problem solving, let's say, for instance, and this is a problem that I often do with students, and we have already alluded to the diversity of this group just on this in the Zoom call this afternoon, and the group that you will be journeying with over the course of the next few weeks, a representative of the world as a whole almost. But in my country, diversity and inclusion, specifically then in South Africa, is a very important topic to deal with. So when it comes to problem solving and knowing that we have something that we need to deal with together as a team, the question changes somewhat. So for whom does this issue matter and why? So why is this important to talk about it? Secondly, what are the ethics and values at stake, and which are the signals of pain that we or I need to attend to? The values that I, for instance, work quite often with are the values, the global values of honesty, of respect, of responsibility, of fairness, and of compassion. So if we are not paying heed to and work on diversity and inclusion, which of these values will be violated or sacrificed as a result? Self-awareness, this is a sensitive topic for many people. So I need also to come to within myself and ask the question, so what do I or what do we feel or think about this? And what concerns can we raise? What discomforts might come about as we are talking about it? Because sometimes conversations around diversity and inclusion might be challenging conversations. So be honest and transparent about what we think or feel in this particular scenario. And then there is an interesting question, I think, that comes with systems thinking is, what will be the consequences if we do not attend to that, if we are not serious about this and do something about it? And if we attend to it, what are the interdependencies and the consequences that we need to be aware of? And as I've said in the beginning, responsible leaders are people that are very much aware of the impact of their decisions and their actions on society, on the environment, on the economy. And so what would be the consequences of our actions, and can we proactively foresee that? And lastly then, so what are the changes that I or we may consider? What action steps can I or we start with? In the globally responsible leadership initiative that we also participate as a business school, we used to say the following: think big, start small, act now. So where can I actually start with, even if it is a small step forward? So I would like to close with two examples. Quite recently, at the end of a postgraduate diploma program where I taught business in society to a group of students, I used CAL as an instrument for reflecting of what they've learned, integrating the learning. One student, she works for a petroleum company. She realized that she was not taking sustainability and the position of her business that she currently works with, its impact on society and the environment seriously enough. And she realized that I will have to become a change agent for more ethical, responsible, and sustainable behavior and practices. But she, at the same time, in her essay, she also wrote and said, if I cannot do this in the place where I currently work, I probably have to consider a job change in order to be true to myself and the awareness that I carry now within myself. But it was sending her back to her organization in a different way, and also at the same time helping her to reflect about herself within that situation. The other one was a very interesting one. I use or present a program on values-driven leadership, which I do across the African continent in a variety of countries at the moment. And after one of these programs where I once again used CAL, people did the instrument, but I used CAL in this particular case for problem solving. I invited the participants to identify an ethical challenge that they might be dealing with in their business environment at that point in time during the course. And then this one person in his essay is a business owner, and he wrote back to me in his essay, and he said, I have a personal desire to build an ethical business, but I have to do this in an industry that is characterized by bribes and kickbacks. So I had to make a plan, and he made a very, very unique plan. He has taken CAL and he realized, but this is not difficult to understand and apply. So his next step was to expect from his management team, as well as his board, to take the instrument themselves, and then they shared their results. And it became for them a framework for business development and problem solving, so that whenever they are faced with a problem that might have an ethical or sustainability or responsibility angle to it, they then say, okay, so let's take the framework and work through it now. What are the stakeholder implications? What are the ethics and values involved? How do we position individually and together with respect to this? Then if we act or don't act, what might be the consequences, the systemic consequences? And then if we act, what can we start with? So I hope that you will enjoy the instrument, enjoy using it, working with it, and applying it in your personal life, in your teams, in your organizations, in society, wherever you might be. I find it helpful, and I hope that the same will be true for you as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Professor Arnold. Super good. So now you have many reasons to really go to this email that we sent you and to really do these tests and get to know and explore the competencies. So now we are slowly arriving to the third part of our ceremony, and then is the time to the Q&A. So you have been sending a lot of questions on the Slido, as I can see it, and so now we will have J. Christopher Proctor here, which is, I would describe him as the main question asker of Oikos International, leading this Q&A. So, J. Christopher, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcelo. So I guess I am the question asker, but really you guys should be the question askers. So I just wanted to take 1 second to encourage everyone to go back to the Slido. We got quite a few questions for Tok at the beginning, but it kind of dropped off. So just encourage everyone to go back there. I know it's very hard to follow a presentation and follow the Slido. So I guess I just wanted to make sure that we had like 60 seconds here for everyone to kind of focus on that. And so I just wanted to say happy Halloween to anybody who is celebrating the 31st of October. And with that, we can jump into the questions. So I'll go ahead and start with a handful of the questions for Toke. Then hopefully we can get around for Arnold. And then I had at least one for Leonardo and then a handful of questions for Sophie. And we'll sort of see. I believe we've got about 15 minutes, if that's right, Marcelo. But yes. So we'll try to be quick in the answers here. So for Toke, I have, I guess, three kind of different tracks of questions here that I wanted to kind of look into. The first is kind of quite straightforward. Could you share with us your own daily responsible leadership practices in the levels of being, knowing, and doing? Straightforward, but not exactly an easy question. So sort of what kind of, I guess, practical advice or things could you share from your own practices? I think the second, there was a lot of questions around this idea of being prepared for your time to lead. So I'm going to kind of combine a couple questions here into one larger one. So one question is, how do you know when it is your time to lead? How do you know when you're ready and when your time is? And I think another question that at least I had is, how do we kind of rethink this, not just from the individual level, but from a generational level? Sort of how do we as a generation know when it is our time? And I guess more importantly than that, how can we really prepare ourselves, not just personally, but as a unit organizationally? How can we build the links and the structures and the networks and the things that are going to be needed to really take advantage when our time comes? So that's sort of question cluster number 2. And then I'll just finish with cluster of questions number 3 about the idea of empathy. So I had specifically, do you see social media as having a role in making us less empathetic? And then kind of more generally, there's a feeling that as a society, we've unlearned how to be empathetic and how to act altruistically. And what kind of things can we as a society do to try to achieve more compassion? So that's 3 questions, 3 clusters of questions. So
and I have 3 minutes to answer.
Exactly.
So, what a challenge. Thank you for the questions. Let me see. Personal practices. I think each person needs to choose your own personal practice. A good way of determining whether it is a good one is, will it help you? Will it help me stay conscious when things happen that I like, or things happen that I don't like? Can I stay conscious and awake and non-judgmental, even with the madness of the world? So this other quality of practice is fall in love with the practice, whether it is yoga or meditation or being in nature or personal reflection time, quiet. Fall in love with the practice. Don't fall in love with the getting a nice experience. Because if you just keep going for the experience, you will lose maybe the determination to keep on practicing. I have been practicing I chose between 5 different meditation practices. I practiced 1 hour sitting every day, no matter what happens. And it helps me deeply to stay centered in the midst of chaos. And so I'm not saying you all need to find that particular practice, but find something that can help you and keep practicing it. So that's on an individual level, and nobody can do that for you. It's like sometimes we depend so much on the collective that we lose the strength of the individual. But if we can show up with courage and presence and being in a respectful place towards ourselves, then we can bring that to the collective. Second question was around, remind me, please.
Second question was around the how we apply this idea of being prepared for our moment to our entire generation. And there was also a comment about sort of comparing with previous generations that may not have had that might not have been prepared, and that's some of the reasons that we're in the problem that we're in now. So how do we avoid that?
There's an old samurai poem from a sword master of Japanese. I practiced Aikido, a martial peace practice. It says, when acting, wait for your moment. When waiting, sit like a rock next to the precipice. When your moment comes, give yourself completely like a rock falling into the valley. So learn how to read the moment. When this begins, the nervousness, even fear, can be a part. It's not something to figure out necessarily intellectually. It's a invitation from outside hitting an invitation and a willingness from within yourself. All the kind of places of power and influence that I have been invited to in my life, I never strategized to get there. I was invited from somebody sincerely from the heart. Sincerity speaks across time and space. To the question around how do we as different generations prepare, I'll just say two things. What you're doing here is good preparation, and I think your generation is beautifully stepping up, or at least many of you across the planet to step up. The other thing is we can work together intergenerationally, which is what we are also doing today. But I think there's a wisdom hidden between the 3 generations or 4 generations alive at any given time. And this intergenerational collaboration is extremely important. So keep inviting each other for collaborating and using all the different methods and understandings. And thank you, Arno, for your very excellent description of that tool. There's much to be gathered in the intergenerational field. What was the third question?
Third question was on empathy in society, and we're running short on time, so just a couple of thoughts on that.
I will basically say practice empathy and you will have more empathy. Practice kindness and you will have more kindness. Don't hide your love. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that could be a good conference slogan one day for Oikos. Don't hide your love. I think that's an important message. I want to go quickly to a question for Leonardo. Sort of thinking about this idea of preparedness, and particularly this idea of intergenerational cooperation. How do we apply that to academia, where we have very different roles as students or early career faculty or more senior faculty? And what does this look like in the world of academia of being prepared for our moment and our chance to really make a big difference? Easy questions here.
Yeah. If I knew this answer, that's like $1 million answer. The academia structure and the universities, they are often criticized by being very close to building walls, and sometimes to be a little bit afraid of innovating, afraid of opening spaces and to the voices of younger students. Usually they call the universities and academia and the research area of the ivory tower, because it's inaccessible. It's difficult to change some structures. But I think that we cannot do a revolution from one day to the other. It's not possible, and I think maybe it's not the way of doing that. But I think I would take the advice from Professor Tolk. I think this intergenerational dialogue and collaboration is very important. Usually we hear a lot about young leaders, let's develop competencies. Young leaders in the future, the name of this program is NexGenLead, so the next generation leaders. But it's very important to be together, to exchange with other generations. Sometimes it's difficult, sometimes you do not have the same references, you do not have the same cultural references. Sometimes the dialogue is difficult, but there is a lot to learn together. And I think that's the way. I think we need to show our love, do not hide love. I love also the slogan, but also this intergenerational dialogue and collaboration is a key factor into begin to change and to begin to provide more opening in the academia and universities. There is a lot to learn. I think we're speaking here and most of you are young. I think I'm somehow in the middle of this intergeneration. I'm not that young, but we can learn a lot, not only because other generations have more experience and more knowledge, but we can spark inspiration, we can spark the will to do things that I think that it's inspiring, and I think it's intergenerational dialogue. I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you. So turning now to questions for Arnold. So I was struck by this image of sort of me in the middle with we and then all of us around us, because it just reminded me so much of the images used in ecological economics to try to picture how the economy and different parts of society are embedded in different layers. And I thought it was really interesting how the same kind of images and mental models can really be used there. I wanted to note that. I thought that was interesting, and see if you had any comments on, I guess, this idea of being inspired from other places and how we can kind of use these ideas. Some of the questions from the chat, I think one that was quite interesting was trying to ask on this idea of sharing intergenerational knowledge. What was one of your biggest personal challenges in terms of responsible leadership, and how could the Carl framework help you think through that or help you develop in that sense? Quite I guess, a vulnerable question there, but I thought that was interesting. And then just the final one here would be, what advice would you have specifically for students in trying to use this framework and develop? I think it's obviously something that can be applied to anyone, but students are at a particular stage in life and a particular place in society. So what kind of specific things to students would you have to say? You're muted.
I was looking at the questions on Slido and I wondered which you would come up with. So yes, let me say maybe and answer the first question in two directions. The one is going back to a time some years ago when I was still working in a corporate environment, for which I wish at that stage I had these kind of tools available, because life in corporate has got its own kind of political connotations, its own difficulties. It is so easy to end up in triangles. Sometimes you have to bear the brunt of ethical decisions to be made. And if I look back, for instance, at the time when I did not have this framework available and when I was much younger, I wish I had something in a very tough situation where I could have something that could help me think through it. Who are the stakeholders? Why is this bothering me? What is it that I am aware of within myself that is so uncomfortable, and feel that it is exposing me
Did we lose connection?
It looks like the sound has dropped. Arnold, if you're there, we can't hear you. You're frozen. Well, because we're close to the end here, if I don't hear from him in the next second, I'm going to start to ask Sophie a question, and just have a final question here, and we will juggle if he's able to come back. So I guess, Sophie, there was, you probably saw in the Slido, there's a lot of questions about Oikos and about how you can get involved, whether Oikos is in certain regions. I think a lot of the more specific things we can sort of answer either in breakout groups or in the Discord. But maybe, I guess, just to ask, what sort of advice or knowledge do you think the Oikos community has created over the years? Sort of, I know you've been president now for about a month, but Oikos has been around for over 30 years, and we've really had a good run, I think. So what kind of advice or suggestions would you have, speaking from the Oikos community, and maybe if there's sort of, I guess, the obvious idea of start an Oikos chapter, but sort of beyond that, what kind of advice would you have for participants of NexGenLead?
Totally, that's a super good question. So I joined Oikos over 6 years ago, and I really I remember these first days in university where it was like a complete new world. And when I would think back about a recommendation from Oikos for these times, or in general for your studies, for students all over the world, it would be keep your eyes open, observe the context and see really what is happening there, and what does it do to me, what is present. And then from there, dare to ask questions, ask for the reasons. And last but not least, maybe, and then I'm back at the point you are actually sharing, Christopher, join forces. You're not alone. You can achieve everything, but you don't have to do it alone. And there's great student networks out there, no matter if it is Oikos or any other student group, and connect to the international level as well. And of course, there's Oikos, and our doors are open.
Thank you, Sophie. And I think that that's such a great point to end on, because as much as we talk about personal development and leadership, leadership implies a community. It implies that there's other people who are interacting with you. And it's just so important for us to have this in mind. And I love that the term systems thinking came up in Catherine's presentation, that part of this is really thinking about the bigger picture. Where do we fit into it? And how can we both individually and as a community really make our mark? So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Marcelo. And I believe that we'll be going into some breakout groups. If Arnold is able to come back, maybe we could put him in a breakout group if anyone wanted to discuss further, because he didn't get a chance to answer his questions. But thank you very much, and happy Halloween. Back over to you, Marcel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christopher. Great, so we are coming to the final part of this ceremony, which is the connecting part. But before, just some announcements in case you might need to leave at some point. So tomorrow, so in the next days, we will be sending you the links for your local hubs, and therefore to access Discord and to start then your discussions with your local peers, colleagues, friends, and with the international community. Also, we will be sharing with you the catalog of interviews with responsible leaders. So again, you can watch these interviews, be inspired, and yeah, we will have some questions and practices to start thinking about what is responsible leadership, what is sustainability, and therefore start bringing your own perspective to this program. Finally, in the email we sent, you can already find the participant guide and the facilitation guide that will help you go through this journey and start to learn already from the amazing speakers that we had here.